Hello and welcome to Chaos. Man, my brain just shut off. It's been a week. Welcome to the Ka0s Tournament Podcast. I am Fetch, and with me today is Kuma.
Yo.
And Neko.
Hey everyone.
So today we'll be going over breaking down the Treasure Series 5. We're up to 5 of them now. We've done a whole lot of these, and we're keep on going, but we're gonna be hopping right in here with the top 16.
Yeah, first off we have Kinnan, Grind Them into Dust with Primer by Wounded Satellite, and Wounded is a name that if you've been in the online tournament scene, you'll definitely recognize. You'll definitely recognize this deck. Consistently performing with it.
I mean, I think we've talked about Wounded probably around 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. Maybe he's missed one of our top 16s, but Wounded Satellite is one of the most consistent performers in this, like, just in the game, honestly, and has been bringing Kinnan for a long time, and we're really doing good stuff with it.
Yeah, for sure. Something to be said about knowing what you like and getting good at doing it.
Yeah.
The only real difference to the deck list that I noticed this time is the inclusion of the One Ring, which I know Kinnan has been able to make some good use of right now.
Of course, Kinnan's good with One Ring.
If you're not a turbo deck and you're not running Collector Roof, you should probably be running One Ring.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to talk about the One Ring a little bit more later, but let's just say there's a whole lot of One Rings running around. Makes me question the name.
Can I just say my favorite thing about One Ring is the amount of Tezzeret the Seeker showing up in decks now? Because I absolutely love that guy. You'll notice that Kinnan list is running Tezzeret the Seeker, which basically exists to -4. Here's the One Ring.
Well, I mean,
-3 Basalt Monolith is also pretty good.
I'd say that's a little bit better, but
That too. Also, hey, you already got the One Ring plus Tezzeret. Untap the One Ring.
Yeah, that's really good. That was Seedborn used to, which this deck also runs.
It's disgusting.
It's gross.
I hate it
dust
so
off your
much.
Manifold Keys and Minamos, guys. Like, that's real with the One Ring. That is real.
Seedborn is a good card. One Ring is a good card. You put them together, and it's one of the most disgusting things in the world.
Speaking of disgusting, this deck also runs Karn, which is interesting to see in Kinnan. I don't know if I've seen that before, but turning off your opponent's artifacts, being able to get yours out of exile potentially in some cases, could be really strong.
Well, yeah, Neko, it shuts off their One Ring.
Yeah, one-sided artifact hate that you can get out really quickly seems good to me.
Yeah, Karn says my One Ring works and yours doesn't.
Yeah, I think Karn is a card that a lot of people are sleeping on, just because it's so easy to get out.
You can get out super early, you can ping down your opponent's 0-cost artifacts, you turn them off, and again, the minus ability just to get cards out of exile, even if it doesn't work necessarily in your deck, if you have a deck that, or if your Basalt Monolith's turned off by like Force of Negation, or it's removed by like a Dothy or whatever, you can get it back.
Yeah, that's corner case, but for sure that's a thing you can do. I mean, I like Karn as a card. I tend to cut it from decks that are also running like Oof, Nullrod, Stony Silence, but I think there's another class of deck that doesn't want those cards because it has to use its own artifacts, but still wants to be able to shut your opponents off. I think Karn has a spot in a few decks, and maybe Kinnan's one of them.
Yeah, Karn reminds me a lot like Dothy, where it's that one-sided stacks piece that can get a lot of value. I mean, it's slightly different than Dothy, obviously, but similar in how they play out.
And with this list too, you can protect your Karn because you have a bunch of big creatures to make sure your opponents can't swing into it. And Karn doesn't go anywhere on its own. It's just going to keep upticking, and it's just going to be there.
Yeah. But we spent a whole lot of time talking about a deck that we know an awful lot about. Let's move on to another deck that we know even more about. Tivit in 15th place. This one brought by Akinlob? Is that how that's pronounced?
I don't know how else to pronounce it. Akinlob.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Tivit's a deck that is shown, regardless of what variant you're bringing, it's gonna be good.
Oh, yeah. Like, what is there to say about the deck? I mean, we got a little bit of false advertising here. The deck list title is Tivit but different. It looks pretty boilerplate to me. I'm not seeing a lot of cards here that make me go, whoa, that's different. But hey, that's fine. It works. Like, it clearly works. Just look at our results.
Yeah.
Another deck bringing the One Ring.
Yeah, there were 5 Tivit decks, I believe, in this event. All of them were running the One Wing. The One Ring. The One Wing.
Oh, you mind the One Wing?
I shall release to you.
No, I think Tivit is a deck that really utilizes the One Ring. It fits with their. I'm doing it too. It fits with how they want to play. That kind of waiting for the right time, grinding out through stacks pieces, and ignoring everyone else at the table. While, as far as everyone else, as the interaction pieces that they're doing, and just getting that value.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, it's another card that says, hey, look over here, look over here, look over here. This is going to screw you up. This is going to screw you up. Bam. Time sieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tivit,
the only thing I'd be curious about with the One Ring in Tivit, your main outlet is Time Sieve, infinite turns, and the One Ring can draw you cards in those turns to keep you going or find a finisher, but you do still take the damage on each of those upkeeps, so that's one thing to consider with the card in this particular build.
Eventually you find a bounce spell and you win, or you can sacrifice it with Time Sieve, actually.
Oh, true.
Yeah, you can just sacrifice it with Time Sieve.
So never mind. It's a mute point.
And even if you couldn't, everyone's died to their mana crypt once, yet we all still play it. I feel like the One Ring is not going to kill a lot of players.
Yeah, it's probably not the biggest thing.
Yeah, I forgot. It has indestructible, but it can still be sacrificed. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, top deck, and we just keep on seeing top decks and top players as we move on to 14th place. Primal Niv by Shauna Ka0s. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Shauna is a player that has been bringing Niv for quite some time and is one of the few players that still is like, yeah, Niv's a good deck.
I mean, I'm with Shauna on this. I have always loved Niv Peyrune. I think Niv is a deck that people are really sleeping on. Like, once it gets set up, nothing out mid-ranges it, and it's almost impossible to stop. And you're running 41 instants, so it's not like people are just going to race you. You have probably more counter magic than any other deck in the format to stop the fast wins as well. It's like, as long as you're smart about what you're doing, it is a very difficult deck to beat.
I have described Niv before as one of the only control decks that we have in the format, and it works well for it.
It does. Being able to draw the cards, being able to refill your hand as instants or sorceries are cast is just so efficient because it's for each player, right? So if you cast a counter spell, you aren't losing cards in hand. You're staying net neutral, basically.
Yeah, when they try to fight a counter war, they just refill your hand.
Exactly.
Yeah, once that Niv gets down, it's pretty hard to deal with. It's hard to cast.
Yeah, you just have to remove it on board quickly. You don't let it go through a change of phase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, best thing you can do in my experience is have the Gilded Drake ready.
Ooh, Gilded Drake that's disgusting.
It is.
I've stolen a few Nivs in my day. It's a pretty great feeling.
Fair enough then. But yeah, well done, Shauna. Consistently showing that deck to be popular. Oh, not popular, powerful. Sorry. Misspoke there. But an unpopular deck. So far, the least known that we've seen. And one that honestly has a little bit of buzz about it. Not a ton, mainly because of the colors. But something potentially keep an eye out, depending on the playstyle you're interested in. Shalai and Halar in 13th place.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's not very popular, and yeah, there's not a ton of people playing it, but like Niv, it's powerful. This is not the first placement this deck has got, and I doubt it will be the last.
I will never for the life of me understand why people bring Naya decks to tournaments.
You just despise Naya.
Isn't this like a one-card combo with All Will Be One or something? Or is that a different deck I'm thinking of?
No, that's Nixilis.
Okay. I think it might be both, actually.
I know this one's not running All Will Be One, so if you're not even running the one-card combos with your commander, like...
It's a one-card combo with the Red Terror, and a few other things.
Yes.
Yeah, there's multiple cards that it one cards with. I just forget what all of them are. I know the Red Terror is one of them. That's a 4-mana creature. It's a Tyrannid from our Warhammer set.
Yeah, it also combos with Heliod, I believe.
That makes sense.
That would.
Heliod the Sun Crowned, yeah.
I mean, if you got a bunch of 1-card combos with the commander, I can at least understand why you would play it. Like, I'll give it that much. It looks like there are a few. I guess this is the deck that wants Time of Need if it finds you Heliod, just straight to win with. Yeah, I don't hate this as much as I thought.
Not hating a Naya deck. Dang, Kuma.
A little bit of trivia. I had the Marath list on the database for a while, so like my relationship with Naya is very complicated.
That is the only Naya deck I've heard you talk positively about.
I mean, I don't
It's a
even
good
play,
deck.
I
It
don't even
deserves
play
more
it
love.
anymore, and it's not on the database anymore. But like, I love it. It's not the best choice you can make, but Arab Prince got like really good with that in our last event.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's. I mean, Naya decks can win. Don't get me wrong. It's just saying I don't want black and blue is a very high bar for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think there is some merit to these creature strategies. Even this deck can make use of the Emil Dockside combo really well because it's also the outlet for that. So there is some cool things this deck to do. I think green creature tutors are really strong and they can't be overlooked, especially because a lot of them put them right onto the field, which limits your interaction windows for them.
I do find it hilarious how Emil in this deck is not only some way to loop your dockside, but is also the way that you trigger your commander. Because it's the +1/+1 counters that use it.
Little known fact, Emil has a second ability, and it's actually very relevant in this list.
I've never seen it come to play anywhere else, but in Shalai and Halar, it's a powerful thing.
I think one time in Marath, I made infinite mana and had no outlet, so I put a +1 counter on all my creatures and passed the turn, but yeah.
Fair enough, I guess. But yeah, it's a cool deck that is very... You're able to do that stacks mid-range plan while also having a lot of 1-card wins. And multiple 2-card wins, so it's pretty solid. Speaking of pretty solid, 12th place, we've got... I do love the name for this. Kraken Kitten by Sam Sapper. Kraken Kitten is a Tevish Thrasios list that, much like the name suggests, uses Displacer Kitten in order to get a ton of value, and I believe it also has some loops with it, but I could be wrong about that. Actually, does it just loop instantly? I forget.
I mean, there's got to be some kind of loop if you're running the kitten.
Well, yeah, basically what you can do is you can do like a manual storm plan, right? With something like Tevesh. You can cast spells, flicker Tevesh, make body, sacrifice those bodies, draw cards. And there's also a line you can do with Spell Seeker where you can flicker the Spell Seeker, get like the Entomb Reanimate package that lets you go and get the Thassa's Oracle, but actually I don't know if it is on that particular package.
I know it also does like Hullbreaker things, and it's got
Oracle.
Kin and Thrasios stuff.
Yeah, but it's not running the Reanimate, which is interesting, because I know that can be a pretty easy combo to slot in when you're already in these colors and on the kitten plan.
Yeah, but I mean, your slot's got to go somewhere, I guess, like to the One Ring, which this list is on.
Yeah, I think Tevish as a card is so good at getting you such aggressive card advantage.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, first turn, you just get either 2 or 3 cards, and then the next turn you get another 2 cards, and then you just keep on going. And if you need to, you can make blockers, and eventually you get a thing that is going to win you the game. Because the -10, I don't think I've ever seen someone activate that and not win on the spot. Like,
yeah, it's a really strong ability.
Effectively win on the spot. Not like win that turn, but just shut everyone else out.
Yeah, I've never activated the minus and lost.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not... I mean, Rogue-Rack Tevesh's entire deck built around how fast can I play Tesh and then immediately draw cards with a Rogue-Rack, and it works. Like, that is a powerful magic card, and this is a good shell.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting colors to Sultai. I think Sultai's taken a bit of a hit recently, but I still think it can do really well. I think Tevesh is strong. I think the Delayed Halfling works really well in this deck, making sure your Tevesh can't be countered.
Yeah, I think Sultai is probably your worst 3-color blue-black, but having both the Tevesh and the Thrasios to get you a ton of grind capability makes you a really powerful mid-range deck.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question it's the worst 3-color pair with blue and black, but it's still a blue and a black deck. You can only be so bad with blue and black in your deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a cool list being brought by Sam, who I think has played this deck for a good bit.
I mean, it's a deck that's secretly beginning some good pieces, right? Invasion of Ikoria, Delighted Halfling, things like the One Ring, Orcish Bowmaster. So things that are just pushing decks like this, I think, really well right now.
Bowmasters is deceptively strong in this list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they only run Time Twister, which I think is primarily for loops more than anything else.
Probably. There's Eternal Witness in there. They're probably looping a Time Twister.
But the Bowmaster, the way that it interacts with Tevesh and the way that it interacts with Kitten and just passively getting you value and removing other people's stuff, it's a surprisingly powerful piece in this list.
It is.
But that's enough of interesting stuff, enough of new stuff. We've got another Tivit in 11th place.
Enough interesting stuff. Let's talk about Tivit.
I will say, though, this is Temujin, our returning champ, showing that it's not just a fluke, that they are actually a good pilot.
Oh, absolutely. And is that a Limdul's Vault I see? A+ from me. That's one of my favorite Magic cards of all time.
It is a weird card. I think we saw them cast it on stream.
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, Languish? What?
Yeah, I was looking at that too. That was an interesting piece.
Okay.
What was that? I need a 100th card real quick. What's my closest bulk rare? Like, what?
So, I think the thought process behind Languish in this deck, which for those who don't know, I wouldn't blame you. Languish is 2 mana, or 2 colorless, 2 black, 4 total. For a sorcery, that is all creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn. So I think the thought process on this is that they wanted another board wipe, but they wanted something that didn't hit their own Tivit. And Languish will remove basically the rest of the board, but your Tivit will stick around. Because they're already on Toxic Deluge, they're already on Psych Rift. And so I think that's the thought process.
That makes some sense, I suppose, but at that point, I'd almost rather just run Grim Tutor and find my Toxic Deluge or whatever.
I don't know. We've been saying all along, right? People need to add more removal. They need to add more board wipes, and Temujin took that advice, right? They added a piece that works well in their deck. It keeps your commander alive. It probably nukes the rest of the board. I think that's a strong piece. It's, 4 mana, 2 black pips, sorcery speed. It's not the most attractive thing, but I think it gets the job done when you need it to.
Well, I'm trying to think of what in this format it doesn't kill, other than like another Tivit, or if you somehow run into a Corvold player.
Somebody, no, that would kill that. Look, I agree with what you said, Neko, but it's like, but Languish? That's not what I meant when I said run sweepers. I understand the reasoning. I can't name the card, but I feel like there's got to be something better than Languish for that.
The only other card I can think of that you could make an argument for is Winds of Abandon, and I think the two cards might be comparable, but...
The most common thing that people use as their second removal, second board wipe, is Damn, which is destroy target creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated, and you can overload it in order to get a full board wipe. But if you want to keep your Tivit around, you don't really have a Damn as an option.
I mean, is it that much better than, say, Yeheni's Expertise? Same mana cost, all creatures get -3. You may cast a card with CMC 3 or less from your hand for free. Is hitting 4s like that important? I don't know.
I mean, it hits Winota if that's relevant.
I don't feel like it
kills
is.
Crom.
Kills Crom.
It kills Crom, which is a flyer blocker, which stops your Tivit combat.
Killing Crom is actually a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's not nothing, that's for sure.
Winota's less the case, but killing Crom is actually pretty relevant there.
I mean, casting a free spell is so nice. But yeah, maybe the 4s are. I don't know. I mean, clearly thought was put into this, and this is just me off the top of my head here. But
to be fair, you were talking about one card that I've pretty much never heard of, and you mentioned another card that I have actually never heard of. So
I have a somewhat casual mono black control deck in Commander, and I know every 4-mana, 3-mana board wipe in black that there is pretty much.
maybe Languish getting cut for whose expertise? Someone?
Yahenni, the Etherborn person on Kaladesh, Yahenni.
Well, maybe that is actually the hot tech to go for. But who knows?
I gotta go on TCG Player and buy about 100 of them.
There you go.
Either way, Temujin coming back with another top 16, another top performance. So good for them.
While we're here, though, another card that every time I've seen it's just been amazing, massively overperforming card, Lotho Corrupt Sheriff.
Okay, Lotho, like, no one was talking about it before the release happened, and then the release happened, we're like, oh, maybe Lotho's actually a really good card, maybe we should run this. And now I'm seeing it like every deck that can run it, and I don't think I've heard anyone complain about it.
If you're on white and black, you should be running Lotho. Like, I've even run it in some decks that run like Null Rods. It's that good. You play this, if you play your turn right, you can immediately get a treasure. You play it, then something else, instant treasure refund. You're probably getting 1 or 2 per turn cycle from your opponents at a minimum. It's a magic card. Like, it's one of the ones that makes me want to run it in decks to try to shut artifacts off. Like, that card is legit.
Yeah, Lotho is very quickly becoming a staple in our format.
It is. I think things like Atraxa love it, this deck loves it, Blue Farm loves it. It's just one of those other cards. There have been a couple that were just overshadowed by the discussion about Bowmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, Bowmaster kills it pretty easy, but so what? It's still good. Like we were just talking about, too, with the sweepers, right? Yahenni's expertise, get that free 3-mana spell. You play Lotho and then a 1-mana spell. You get the treasure back. You basically play the 1-mana spell for free. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we're talking about Dockside. Let's go on to our 10th place deck, Rogsai by Corey Millhouse. And this is very much a Dockside, or not Dockside, Bowmaster. I just messed up my words. Talking about, this is very much a Bowmaster focused list. It runs Narset, Notion Thief, and Bowmaster on top of all of the good wheels and arguably one of the bad ones in Wheel of Misfortune.
I mean, I was going to look at this shrug and say, Rogsai, but it looks like they kind of went a little Opus Thief with this one. We got the Bowmasters, we got Narset Parter of Veils. I see all of the wheels. This is a slightly different take on the deck. Days? Is Rogsai running Days?
Yeah, Rogsai runs Days sometimes.
Okay. That just stood out to me a little bit.
Yeah, I think Rogsai was on a lot of these wheels already. I'd seen some of the lists already running things like Narset, but Bowmasters just makes it so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of Rogsai's, since Bowmaster came out, have gone, okay, either I'm going all in on wheels or I'm leaning away from it. Not cutting wheels, because you can't just cut wheels. But you're either running like the whole wheel package, not just Notion Thief, but also running Narset and also running Bowmaster and also running Wheel of Misfortune. Or you're cutting Notion Thief and focusing on going Burr.
Oh, we got a problem here, though. I see 24 lands and 3 talismans.
I was going to bring that up as a good thing.
Someone didn't listen to the Running Lands podcast, and his name is Fetch.
I was in that podcast. Thank you very much. Now, maybe they did listen to the Running Lands podcast and agreed with me for it. So I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, apparently so.
I mean, if you haven't checked it out, there should be a link to it that you can, at least if you're on YouTube, you can click on the thing in the corner and it should head to it.
I'll just say in the tournament, I got screwed because I drew an Arcane Signet and it wasn't a land. I'm just going to put that out there.
something, not letting circumstances overweigh data, something.
I know, but that was kind of what I was like pointing at, and then it happened anyway.
I mean, sure, but it could have been any other card besides the Signet, and it still wouldn't have been a land.
Yeah, but if you replace the Signet with a land, which is what I was kind of sort of arguing for, whatever, we're getting in weeds here.
Maybe you should have listened to your own arguments, but either way, in 9th place, we've got Blue Farm being brought by Brian Barton.
Just another Blue Farm deck in a world of too many Blue Farm decks by Brian Barton.
What a name. But yeah, this Blue Farm leaning more into that mid-range strat, which we've seen Blue Farm starting to do more. Running that Containment Priest, running Mind Sensor, running Boromir, which I think is a really cool card that people have started to run.
Boromir over Lavinia is interesting.
The ability to sacrifice Boromir is really good because it turns off Lavinia's main drawback of basically it's good when it's there, but if you ever need a situation for players to cast their free interaction, Lavinia, you can't sacrifice. Boromir says, okay, if I sacrifice this, can you counter this? Okay, cool.
I mean, this is Blue Farm generating a lot of mana, but going from 2 to 3 mana on a stacks piece is kind of a really big deal. Maybe less so in a deck like this, but I mean, yeah, you're right about the sacrifice, but I'm not 100% convinced that makes it better than Lavinia, just because 3 mana is a lot more than 2.
It's going 2 to 3 mana, but it's going from 2 colors being used to double colorless with a white.
Yeah, so not quite as bad as it sounds, but I'd still go with white-blue, personally.
Yeah, I think you do lose one of the things that make Lavinia really good, which is the ability to stop your opponents from casting non-creature spells if they don't have enough lands, which can really punish some of the decks. But again, that sacrifice ability is still really good. It's almost like a silence effect for your turn, and it lets you sacrifice it if another player is going to go off first.
Oh, guys, I've got it. He's running Dovin's Veto, and he said there isn't room in this deck for 2 spells to cost white-blue, so that's why it's Boromir over Lavinia. I got it now.
Ah, makes sense, makes sense. But no, I think Boromir, as Neko was saying, it isn't just a stacks piece, it is also like a soft silence. It's almost like a mini Ranger Captain, except for in reverse.
Yeah. I know some people are running Teferi now. This deck's not, so maybe, again, just slotting in for that, run double duty.
Yeah, Boromir, Lavinia, and Teferi all fall into similar situations. There's differences between each of them that makes you want to run one more over the other, especially if Kitten is in your deck. That makes it a large difference. But they do fall into similar situations.
I just realized this list is on Aven Mind Sensor and not Opposition Agent. I would love to hear the reason for that one.
Oh, dang.
That is interesting.
Huh.
Other than that, looks fairly standard Blue Farmy.
Yeah, the Spell Dancer, the Mercurial Spell Dancer. Some people have been slotting that in, some people have cut it. I think it can do good work. I think in this list, it looks pretty good, so.
I'm a fan. I like it. It's in my list.
It's a cool card. But either way, we move on to 8th place with Atraxa, the last Blinkbender by Ritzy.
A+ name, good name.
I will say, Atraxa, 1, there are going to be 2 Atraxas in our top 16. And 2, neither of them are named Chris or Punny Name.
It just shows you what the deck's capable of, dang.
Yeah. In fact, Chris is running a completely different deck that we're going to talk about after top 16. But yeah, it's a deck that is consistently showing its power. I will bring up, these lists are moving away from focusing on the wheel plan. Ritzy's still running the Time Twister, but once again, that's for more Time Twister loops more than anything. You're not running the Narset, you're not running the Thief. Still running Bowmaster because Bowmasters is just a great card, but not as wheel focused here.
No, definitely not. Just the Twister here. But I mean, the deck does so many things well. You don't have to be on any one particular plan for the most part. You don't have to be on the wheel plan. The deck still does Atraxa things. No ad nauseum either. I think, weren't you on the record, Fetch, saying you think this deck should run ad nause?
I think most black decks should run ad nause. I don't think there's enough reason for you not to run ad nause in this deck. For like, I get it. It's the same reason why people don't run ad nause in Tivit. But I think both of those decks, it's like, yeah, you're a deck that can grind and you are totally fine going for the long game. But what's the reason not to run ad nause? Are you telling me that ad nause is worse than whatever card you're putting in?
Yes, I think the correct number of one card wins you should be running in your deck is all of them.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do get why a lot of people don't run ad nause in both Atraxa and in Tivit. Because frequently you're using your mana for your commander and not for your ad nause. But like, why not just do both?
I mean, you could draw like a third of your deck for 5 mana or like 6 cards for 7 mana. I mean, up to you.
Yeah, but at least for the tracks, like you were saying, Fetch, and I agree in that case. You want to ramp out and you want to cast Atraxa, and then you really don't have a ton of mana left open after that. And we've been seeing once Atraxa does hit the field, it either wins that turn or probably the turn after.
Typically it's the turn after, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think like getting to that point, I can see why you don't run it here.
If you have the choice, though, between casting your commander or casting ad nauseum, I'm just having a hard time choosing the commander. Like, if you don't have the option, you also have your commander, and that's a great thing the deck can do. But if you had an ad nause, is there a world in which you'd rather cast your commander? I mean, I guess if your life total is low, but other than that...
Well, one reason is Atraxa is a creature, right?
Yeah.
And that's hit by a lot less on-stack interaction.
Yeah.
Which means you're able to cast it more securely. Plus, you have cards like Delighted Halfling right now that make it so even if you could counter it, you really can't.
Okay, that makes some sense to me. Yeah, if your opponents are all holding up mana and cards, it's safer than running an ad nause out there. Fair enough, I'll give you that.
It's also a lot less committal than ad nause, because if your Atraxa either gets countered or goes through, you can just keep playing the game one way or another. Whereas ad nause, you're usually going more or less all in on it. Yeah, I mean, end step ad nause is very much an option that you can do. But it's like, okay, I play my Atraxa, you counter it. That's sad. I'll play it again in a turn or two.
I mean, is there a world where you run the ad nause out there, it gets countered, and you say, shrug, I guess I'll cast Atraxa?
That's my mindset for it. That's what I think. But I understand the reasoning.
Yeah, I get that. I also think that green decks without red have a lot harder time using ad nause to its full advantage, just because you get a lot of dorks which slow you down quite a bit. Those pip you for 1, that adds up, and they don't generate you that instant value that you want on an ad nause turn.
It's definitely a deck that ad nause is in the end step if you're ad nausing with it. But
yeah. But even then, you still have dorks that you have to cast on your next turn, and they still don't have haste. But I can see the argument both ways.
Yeah, I agree with that in theory, Neko, but for what it's worth, I don't think I have a lower ad nause success rate with my Thrasios Tymna than I do with my Blue Farm. I mean, that's just my, very flawed, memory perspective, but like, it's not something I've noticed. But I mean, in theory, yeah, I see where you're coming from, and it makes sense. I just feel like we're probably talking about small numbers here. The decks are probably both very overwhelmingly consistent with an ad nause.
Yeah, for sure.
Either way, Atraxa showing it to be good stuff, regardless of whether you play ad nause or not.
Yeah, imagine being this good without ad nause. When you could just slot it right in, too. Like, that's a powerful deck.
7th place, we've got a lovely name, Esper Pirate Farm by T Dynamite.
It's pirate party time.
Yeah, Malcolm Tymna. It is running ad nause because it's Malcolm Tymna, and also you should be running ad nause. But yeah, Malcolm Tymna doing Doomsday stuff seemed good to me. One ring is another value piece.
Yeah, not much not to like here. They even got the Limdwell's Vault for me. Doomsday, all right.
Malcolm Timna is one of the few good Doomsday decks that are still around.
I mean, it's a card that's fallen out of vogue, but man, is that a Magic card.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Timna makes it so easy to crack. It's so easy to assemble because of the amount of mana that you get from Malcolm. Like, it's a really consistent win con in this deck.
It is. Plus, you have two commanders that are just such high value, right? Card draw and ramp. It's hard to go wrong, especially when you're running probably, and Fetch, this goes back to what you talked about a few months back, probably the strongest 3-color combination right now in the format.
At least up there.
Yeah.
People have been talking about Grixis for a long time. People recently have brought up a new contender that, once again, we'll bring up a little bit later. But I think Esper is one of the most powerful 3 colors you can go for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've said it half a dozen times by now. Silence, Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation can only be so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, he's really in on it with this list. We got a Scout's Warning in here.
That's cute. Not bad, honestly.
Not bad. It just seems a little bit deep on whatever your line is.
Yeah, probably. But instant speed wins for 1 mana, that cycle? I mean, if people are playing Born Upon a Wind, then I figure...
I mean, I feel like people mostly shouldn't be playing that card, but yeah, I mean, cycling for 1 mana gives you a pretty high floor on the card. I will say that, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Born Upon the Wind's probably better, right? Because doesn't that draw you a card as well?
It does.
And that gives all your cards flash, not just the next one you cast this turn.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a math teacher here, so what I'm going to say is not going to make a lot of sense in that context, but 2 is about 100 times more than 1, at least in this format.
Either way, regardless of whether you're running Malcolm Timna or running Tivit, Esper showing itself to be a very powerful color combo. But I think we move on to some spice here. 6th place, we have a deck that we have not seen in quite some time, at least top performing. Being brought by James Singular, which that's kind of hilarious.
That is one of my favorite usernames I've ever seen.
We've got James Gitrog. Gitrog is a deck that exists still.
I mean...
Kuma, I can tell you're about to say some hate.
What about the non-deterministic nature of the deck? Like, I mean, the deck's still non-deterministic, right? You're still not allowed to shortcut it. Was James Singular here literally just grinding it out and not getting slow plays, or did something get worked out? Like, what's the deal with Gitrog and non-deterministic loops anymore?
So yes, it's not deterministic, right, in a lot of senses, but it's usually secure enough that the deck's so tuned to do it that you can demonstrate or explain the combo, and most players will give you the thumbs up that you take it. At least that's what James had been saying. James, we actually been playing a couple games in the league together, and they've been doing some good stuff there. And they mentioned that a lot of players during the tournament, he would be able to explain the combo to them, and they would scoop it up.
I mean, if there was 20 minutes left in the round, I'd scoop it up. But if there was like a couple, I'd be tempted to be like, nah, go ahead and do it and get lucky.
I mean, even if you go to time with it, though, it's all done on 1 turn. So either you're going to get a draw or you're going to be able to finish your combo and win. So
yeah,
it's
but
not
isn't
like
it technically slow play. If I call a judge in and say, Judge, they're not advancing their board state, like, doesn't the judge have to shut them down?
If they're playing
technically,
through
they
the
are
loop.
advancing the... Yeah. They are advancing the board state, technically. They are presenting a win, so to speak.
Like, if you are playing through the loop, it is not that you aren't doing game actions. And any judge who is who is judging CEDH and is consistently judging CEDH is going to know Gitrog is doing a loop to win. It's not that they're just looping for no reason.
Yeah, but I thought there was something in, like, the IPG or whatever that's, like, taking game actions is not necessarily not slow play. Since it's not deterministic, you're not allowed to shortcut it, which means you actually have to do it. And you don't have like a fixed end goal in mind that you can definitely get to after a certain period of time. I thought that had something to do with it. If judges want to hand wave it and say we know they're getting there eventually, that's up to the judge, I guess. But I thought like technically that wasn't allowed.
Well, they are getting there eventually, right? They have the end game in mind. The end game is they're going to draw their deck. It's just a matter of discarding, shuffling to a point that they get there.
If saying
no,
that
the rookies are eventually going to write Shakespeare, that's not the same thing. Like,
no, but Kuma, if you're saying that any non-deterministic loop is slow play, then you're like, oh, you're just drawing cards. I'm going to call a judge on you for slow playing, even though you're going to draw through your whole library eventually.
The loop must be different from what I remember then, because you weren't drawing cards. You were literally trying to get Ka0s like in your graveyard, like in a certain order or something, and you couldn't. And if you had all the time in the world, you would eventually do it because law of large numbers. But the loop must be slightly different now. Then, if what you're saying is, if you're drawing a card every time you do it, no matter what, then like
it's not every time you do it, no matter what, but it's so consistent.
You have cards like Golgari Grave Troll where you're dredging 6, and basically you can alternate between the things to mill or draw or what you need to do. And like there's that stigma, right, around Gitrog that the deck takes forever to do what it wants to do, and it's not going to be able to win in any significant amount of or any short amount of time. But I think that's a bit of slander against the deck, because the deck is a bit more neat than what people think, at least in the hands of a good pilot. If a pilot can perform the lines concisely and keep moving, instead of just sitting there contemplating every move that they're making within the combo, you're going to be fine.
Well, yeah, it's like the same thing with like Ka0s Sakashima too, right? You got somebody who knows what they're doing with it. It moves along at a reasonable pace.
Exactly, and Jane definitely knows this deck.
Yeah, the same thing for calling slow play on Ka0s Sakashima, where it's like, oh, they're slow play because they're flipping coins, and it's like, eventually they're going to get there, and if they're going for something specific, then I don't see how it's slow play as long as they're actually doing stuff for a reason. I wasn't talking about the
speed at which the pilot was taking actions. I was talking about the advancement of the game state. It's like slow play is not just about how fast you're taking actions. If you're like taking actions at a reasonable pace that aren't moving anything forward to eat clock, that's still slow play. I mean, to eat clock's doing a lot of work there, which is like not what a Gitrog player is trying to do when they do their line. I don't know. A lot of questions were asked about this card once upon a time. Maybe I'm just bringing up old stuff we settled a long time ago. I don't know.
You know what? We're not going to settle this right here, but put your opinions in the chat. If we got any judges that are watching this, say what you think. Apparently, Gitrog is still controversial.
I mean, the real controversy should be, is this really the best deck you can run in current year? I feel like the format kind of passed it by, and I mean, yeah, it's still a CEDH deck, but I feel like this one really fell from grace right around the time of Drannith Magistrate.
I mean,
yeah, there are definitely stacks pieces that hurt it, but the deck got 6th place, right? So
I mean, yeah, it's not like completely unplayable, but I feel like, it used to be one of the boogeymen of the format, and now it's very obscure.
Is the deck one of the best in the format? No. Can it still put up top performances? Obviously, yeah. And so why not let people play what they want to play?
Well, I didn't tell people they couldn't play the Gitrog monster.
No, you just said you're bad if you do.
It's banned in the Ka0s Tournament Series.
Kuma saying, only blue farm here. Either way. No, we are dropping this. We're moving on. We're going to 5th place. Atraxa, Cat Food by NATO64. The only thing I'm going to bring up for this Atraxa deck is they run Grand Arbiter Augustin the 4th.
That's a weird one.
Yep.
Any idea why?
I mean, it's a one-sided stacks piece that actually speeds you up. So if you're able to get out I think Gave is the abbreviation for it, or Gav?
Yeah.
I forget.
Gav.
Yeah.
I think Gav is what people call him. If you're able to get out Gav, you can get out Gav on one turn, and then you can get out Atraxa on the turn after that pretty consistently.
I do feel like, yes, it's good for that. I do think that you can probably get Atraxa out regardless without that. I think it's more for the kind of tax effect it has for your opponents, and the other bit is just incidental value. But I don't know if I love it.
I mean,
but it's interesting.
It does make your Atraxa 5 mana.
Yeah.
So if you can get out your Gav, then it makes a stacks piece that also, assuming you don't whiff on whatever land drop or mana source, you're able to get out your Atraxa immediately after with some amount of protection.
Yeah, it seemed nuts at first, but I think you hit the nail on the head, Fetch. That actually makes a lot of sense in hindsight. I don't know if that's like one of the best 99 things you can do, but like there's definitely a good reason to try it. Like,
I still don't know if it's worth putting in the deck. I still think it's a debatable card, but it definitely has its reasoning.
Oh yeah, it definitely makes sense, but I think it's one of those cards that might be a little too cute, but I can see the thought process that went behind it. It's the same reason people were trying things like Elish Norn, right? In a list like this. It synergizes, it's just kind of out there.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes it a lot harder for people to hold up interaction because everything they're doing on the turn costs more, and then the interaction costs more. So this has a little bit of kind of a Teferi effect light here, where it makes it very hard for anybody to interact with each other unless they really want to take the turn off or have a ton of mana.
It's a very cute card that, who knows, maybe it'll start to pick up steam in other Atraxa lists.
Yeah, other than that, pretty similar to the other lists for Atraxa we've been seeing recently.
Yeah. But we are finally to our top 4 in both 3rd and 4th place. We've got Double Tyam being brought by 2 of the biggest names for Tyam, the brothers, Pixel and Tuka.
Yeah, kudos to them. They were up to like 8 in the morning, their time playing in this tournament. So
I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, they did it, and they got to top 4 doing it. So kudos.
One of these days, this is gonna bring all the Linvalas back.
From what I understand, just from the hearsay I've been hearing, Pixel's list I think is the more standard time list, where Tuka's is a bit more out there, running some of the more spicy tech.
Yeah, I will say we don't have time to break down Tyam at all. Like, Tyam's a very complicated deck that does a whole lot of weird things. So I think we talked about it in one of our previous breakdowns. But honestly, Comedian did a great video breaking down Tyam and how it works. So go and check that out.
Mm-hmm. With Pixel, I believe, no less.
Yeah, but either way, Tyam consistently showing itself to be a good deck, and not the only good deck in the top 4. As our other 2 decks, we've got Blue Farm and Najila.
What is this spicy brew with 2 partners? Sans Green.
I mean, Blue Farm and Najila have been talked about as being some of the best decks in the format for a long time, and there's a reason why.
Yeah,
this looks like pretty boilerplate standard Blue Farm. Notice they are on Lavinia over Boromir. Or should I say not running Boromir over Lavinia? I think Lavinia is the more established tag.
Yeah, I think so.
Seen a lot of Limdul's Vault. I thought people were starting to cut that card. Maybe it's making a bit of a comeback.
I think it has. I think you're right. Seen the Professional Facebreaker as well.
Yeah, that's one that's been coming out of a lot of Blue Farm lists. I mean, not for being bad, just for there being better stuff.
Well, and then looking at Najila, just utilizing a lot of those really good new cards. You've got Samut, which is a card that is amazing in Najila and has obviously been talked about a lot, as well as all the Lord of the Rings cards being used. No Bowmaster, interestingly enough, but all the other like standout Lord of the Rings cards, including Flowering of the White Tree. And the One Ring, of course.
And the One Ring, yep.
Just Ice brews to the beat of a different drum. Like, every time I'm seeing Just Ice, post about a deck in a Discord where I also post a deck, I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, that's so far out there. But I mean, obviously it works. It puts up results, but like that's just someone who likes to try out every card imaginable, and I guess occasionally find some good ones.
And to that too, the Spell Sky I think is really interesting. I think some people have been looking at that card more recently, and it does do some good stuff, right? Being able to change the target, especially in an Orcish Bowmaster's world, when your commander's only 2 toughness can really get you ahead.
Yeah, it stops the hell out of an Orcish Bowmaster. I mean, costs you a lot of life, but better that than your commander.
I will bring up something pretty notable here. One, much less notable, but they're on Fire Covenant over Toxic Deluge.
Yes.
But two, something that I don't know how I forgot about this. They're not on Adnaz.
Yes.
Yeah, that's becoming very unusual for an Agila deck to not be on Adnaz. They're on Final Fortune and not Adnaz too, which is even more unusual, although there is still a reason to do that, I suppose.
Yeah, they're still on Breach Lines, they're still on Final Fortune, all that stuff. But they are not on Adnaz. And we talked to them about what their reasoning behind that was. And Just Ice was like, honestly, Adnaz just doesn't fit my style.
Yeah.
Yeah, Just Ice just plays to the beat of his own drum, is not afraid to flout convention to make the deck the way he wants to make it. And I mean, it definitely worked out very well in this tournament.
Well, not only that, he also picked up this deck morning of, I think, never have played it before, and took it to the top position on the podium.
Yeah, this day was the first day they played in Agila, and I'm just like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's a deck you could just pick up and spike a tournament with, it's probably Nagila.
Yeah, apparently Just Ice had been decided, okay, I'm going to play, I think it was like a different deck every day or something like that. Like, they're just trying out a ton of different decks, and they're like, you know, I haven't played Nagila yet. I'm going to play Nagila. And it worked out for them.
If you can commit to that, you'll get good at this format real fast.
Yeah. Being able to play a different variety of styles, really good.
But that is our top 16. Congratulations to all of them, especially Just Ice, obviously, with our winner. But as we move on to our larger tournament stuff, we've been hinting about the other 3-color pairing, that's it, that has been getting talked about recently. Christopher K. Claw was not on Atraxa. They were on Dihada. Playing We Are Mardu doing it. Mardu has been hot, as at least a lot of people think that. And I think Mardu right now is the other. It's like Grixis have been talked about for a whole lot, and now we've got Esper and Mardu.
I don't think Mardu is quite there. I think the colors have been doing really well. You have Timna, Jessica that came before this that got a couple of good results, and now you have Dahada, which a lot of people are looking at. The pairings do a lot of good things. Red and black, great turbo colors, and then both the utility and protection white gives you for your combos can't be overlooked.
The big problem with Mardu for me is you're not playing blue, which means you are relying on the rest of the table to play blue. Now, this deck is apparently very fast, so maybe you can just slam a win down before blue cards to stop other people become necessary. But this is not a deck that's going to do a lot of interacting, and that can definitely make it suffer.
Yes, you don't have counter spells, but Mardu, especially red and white, is not without its interactive pieces, and they can really catch you off guard. Not only do you have the red elemental blast type effects, but you have a lot of silence effects to stop a player who's going to go off. And you also have the things for on-field removal, swords effects, for example. PS creatures and creature win cons are very prevalent right now. So there are pieces there.
This deck runs Silence, Orm's Chant, and Revel in Silence, which is the backside of Flamescroll Celebrant, on top of obviously Ranger Captain.
Yeah, about that. I got reveled in silence by a Dihada deck during this tournament. And I mean, normally I wouldn't care because I had 2 pieces of interaction, but our eventual winner also had 2 pieces of interaction. And so I did not win, and our eventual winner did win. So yeah, the deck can interact, but like you're running a lot less interaction than other lists, and generally not as strong interaction as other lists. Like there's definitely a weakness there. I'm not saying the deck has no interaction. Nobody plays decks in this format with literally 0 interaction, but the interaction is definitely the weakness of this list. And I mean, what are you getting for giving up this good interaction? The deck certainly seems reasonably fast, but it doesn't seem especially fast. Doesn't seem faster than most other decks trying to do a similar thing. I mean, I guess your breach lines get a little easier because you have a piece in your command zone, but I mean, in blue, you can just intuition for your whole line as well, and you still got to find other pieces here. I don't know. Like this is kind of a tweener deck for me. It doesn't feel like it does the breach things. It does the breach things a different way, but I don't know that it does it as well as a lot of other more established decks.
I personally think it breaches better than most decks. It just struggles in other areas. But I think the common thing between Esper and Mardu is that people have realized that white is a really good color right now. Like,
yes,
a really good color.
Very good support color, yes.
And when you have it where your other best colors are Grixis, if you're doing a 3-color list and not just doing 4-color, then you basically have to choose, okay, am I dropping blue or am I dropping red? Because you're not dropping black, that's for sure. And this is really okay, instead of going for that control-y route where I'm using blue, I'm getting that card draw, I'm getting advantage and counter spells and all that good stuff, I'm instead just going to win. And this deck is pretty good at just winning.
Yeah, I think it can win pretty well. So what does Dahada do, right? Dahada instantly comes down and she refunds your mana investment into her. You get at most 4 treasures, or you probably get 3 treasures plus a high value piece like Bergi. Can be really strong. You have the card like Flicker, which you can use for your breach and get that engine going. I don't love Planeswalkers in the command zone, though, for a couple of reasons. So, one, you open yourself up to more on the stack interaction. And two, with cards like Dahada specifically, you play a Planeswalker and it doesn't have any real way to protect itself. Yes, if it dies, you can recast it for additional value, but if you remove it enough, it kind of loses that, especially in such a creature-heavy format right now.
That's fair.
Yeah, this isn't a Tivit where you can just run it out there and immediately get value back and then not have to worry about it. This is not that. This is you run it out, you get your mana back, and then what?
You get your mana back and then you hopefully win.
Well, hopefully you instantly win, but if you don't, it's like, and then what?
Yeah, but that's most turbo decks, right? Like, you either win or then you think, what do I do next?
I will say, this is one of the few turbo decks where you don't need the commander to win, but playing the commander really increases your odds of winning.
Yeah, you do still have things like Grinding Station, you have the dual caster combo, so there are other things you can do which are really good.
And it's not just like Rograk where, it increases your odds of winning because I have more interaction, I have more mana. Dahada does the same mana thing, but also has that, I don't want to say card draw because it's not, but it is a sort of card advantage in a weird way.
Okay, we need to be real about that -3 here. There are 8 legendary cards in the deck. Your odds of getting one of them in your top 4 is pretty tiny. Dahada is most likely not refunding you a card.
No. The reason why
if you're casting it and doing it once.
The reason why it's card advantage is not because you're going to get a legendary back, although you do have the fact of, like, occasionally you just get back the one ring, or like a land sometimes happens. But it's primarily card advantage because you interact with your graveyard well.
I mean, I suppose you're running breach lines. You're running, you're running breach lines. There's not like a reanimation package in here or anything.
I mean, you have Luris.
Does this deck have wins outside of breach line?
I think they do. Do they?
I see Bolus's Citadels or something with that.
Bolus's, Dualcaster. And the thing with this deck, too, is there's no one defined list right now. We're in what people are kind of dubbing Mardu's Summer, right? And I think people are really making Dahada the standard bearer for that. and they're trying her out in kind of different flavors to see which one works best. And I think the deck can get some success. I don't think it's all that in the bag of chips that people are saying it is. It's not like preying upon this current meta, but it can get the W.
I honestly think Tim and Jessica might still just be better in this meta right now.
Oh, definitely.
But both of them are good decks in my opinion. I'm not gonna sit down and look at one of these across the table and think that you're just playing a joke. Like, you're a legitimate threat with either of these lists. But yeah, Mardu, I'm not as high on it as everyone else is, but I do understand the idea of just going for the win and just saying, okay, show me that you have it, and if you don't, I'm gonna silence and GG.
I will say though that playing Dahada, activating her, and then doing a Final Fortune can be really good value.
True. I mean, they also run Last Chance and Chance for Glory because of that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. So you minus her, you get your 4 treasures, you Final Fortune, you can't minus her again on your second turn. I'm not seeing why that's especially good.
Well, because you untap with the potential of probably 2 to 3 additional mana to try to turbo off with.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that, but that's true of all the decks. I'm not sure why that's especially good in Dahada. I guess if you hit like Flicker or something, then it gets better.
Yeah, but there aren't many commanders that generate you mana, right? So say you have 5 mana, right? You cast Dahada, you use 1 additional source and then a treasure. You Final Fortune, and then you have 3 treasures on your untap.
Okay, yeah, that does make a little more sense. Okay, yeah, I gotcha.
Either way, something to keep an eye out, but I'm not quite sure it's top of the format yet. It's close though. Mm-hmm. It's up there.
It is making a resurgence, yeah.
I'd put Mardu right now in probably the A tier. Maybe like top of B, but probably A tier.
When I ranked this commander, I gave it a D. I'd be putting it up maybe a bit higher, but I don't know if I do too much more right now.
I mean, it's not D tier, but...
When I was talking about the colors, not specifically Dahada. But fair. Yeah, I think Mardu's in a really good spot right now. Mainly just because white is an amazing color, and when you pair black and red together, you get some really good stuff with that. Mm-hmm. And Dahada brings some value in addition to that. And I do think that it is different enough from whatever Timna deck you want to go for that has red with it, that it has merit to play. But it really comes down to personal style and what you think fits for both you and for the meta you're going into.
Very much so.
Right now, I think Timna Jessica is slightly better just because of how well Jessica is able to interact with the board. But Dahada does have that I go fast plan, and it does it really well.
Yeah, anytime you're playing Timna, you're sliding yourself down the spectrum towards mid-range a little bit, and Dahada seems like it's basically all turbo. You do not have a long game. You have a quick game.
Dahada is arguably more turbo than Rogsai, and that's saying something, especially a lot of the current Rogsais.
Well, yeah, you don't have blue to draw you out of like failed turbo attempts. You just kind of... I mean, you have Necropotence, though.
Yeah, you have Necropotence. You have your Commander as a weird way to draw you out of failed turbo attempts.
Yeah, that's not getting it done.
I mean, it gets you access to Luris or Burgi, which are both really good ways to refresh and go again.
Gives you probably like a 14% chance at one of those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm talking about like if you fail your first 2 or 3 times, then after you've milled 20 cards, you can eventually get one of those.
Well, yeah, if you hit the card when you've milled 20, then it's better. I thought you were talking about Dahada's going to find you that card to pick you up, and I'm like, well,
no. That's the backup. That's if everything goes wrong.
I agree with you. I understand now.
Oh, and you also have Bolas, which you can get back, or the One Ring, which you can also get back.
Yeah, hey, another more One Ring synergy.
Yeah.
Well, there's different flavors, right? Like, I've seen versions of this deck that are more kind of creature focused. Mardu, I think, has one of the best creature packages right now. So being able to play those cards can be really good if you want to be more mid-rangey.
I personally think...
Guys, what was that?
Thunder.
That is thunder. So if you hear anything in the background, that's what it is. Got a storm brewing here.
By the way, guys, the storm deck is here. Either way, enough Mardu. I think it is time for our official off-meta champion. The The thunder agrees.
That just imagine that's the drum beats of anticipation.
So, we actually had a decent amount of options for this. I feel like it would be heresy to not mention the fact that Comedian brought Atali. Atali, the Phyrexian one, obviously, the red-green one.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, he did.
That just shows that Ian really just can win with a ham sandwich. He didn't make top 16, but he was actually surprisingly close to it.
Yeah, he was. I think Atali's just a decent enough deck on its own, though, right?
Okay, just because Ian can win with it doesn't mean that everyone else can. But it does have some...
You think I hate Naya? Wait till you hear me talk about Gruul.
Oh, I hate Gruul. Red and green are my favorite colors in like every other format, but CEDH Gruul is the worst possible thing.
I mean, it is. 100% it is. Atali's okay, I think. Being able to get well, that's right. You're playing Gruul. So you play Atali to play other decks that have better colors and better cards in them.
Yeah, that culling ritual of mine he played was pretty good.
I'm just going to say this right now. Gruul is a worse color than Mono Red.
Mono Red gets Godo. What does Gruul get?
I think Gruul is legitimately the worst color in all of CDH, and I'm including monocolor in that. I'm not even playing. I hate Gruul.
Yeah.
I've tried to build it. It's so bad.
You made that random archer cry.
I think Minsk... So we need Bones here, right? Because Bones is the Gruul stan, but Minsk and Boo, I think, is okay. I think Atali's okay.
Minsk and Boo is okay. I'll give it that. But
other than that, you have Rudic Thar, and there's not much there. But I think Atali is a deck, right? Because you ramp out, you play Atali, you get value pieces, which can maybe win you the game. You have the food chain combo, or you can just flip it over and have a big infect creature. Seems pretty good.
All I know is we're talking far too much about a deck that did not win. Our actual champion for our official off-meta deck is Braids.
Hey, that card's banned in this format.
Braids Arisen Nightmare being brought by Ka0s.
I'm looking at this deck list, and I am thinking this is a deck list.
You're not wrong.
I mean, I don't know if I love it or if I love the cojones on Ka0s here to bring this kind of mono black deck to a CEDH tournament and win not one, but 2 rounds with it.
Same win rate as Ian.
I mean, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. I have a mono black control deck I play for like not CEDH. So I definitely have a soft spot for this kind of thing. So the fact that somebody managed to do decently well in a CEDH tournament, something adjacent to that, does definitely warm the cockles of my heart a little bit. But like, what is even going on with this deck? Somebody make it make sense.
So Braids off the bat, right? Mid-range value draws you a bunch of cards because your opponents aren't going to want to sacrifice things, or not for long, right? Lands, artifacts, you play them, and then you can just sack them pretty easily.
Yeah.
Get a bunch of value, and drawn to one of these crazy combo lines. To put it into perspective, they run Crick in the 99. They run... Where'd you go? Trazen in the 99.
You had to look that one up.
They run Faith of the Devoted in the 99.
Trazen is more mana Necrotic Ooze, and it looks like they're on Necrotic Ooze lines, so I'm seeing a Phyrexian Devourer.
Yeah.
That's an interesting choice.
Violet and Tumor, which is very
lines
cute.
At that point and save yourself 2 mana.
I'm kind of surprised they're not running both, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mono black. Your card options are somewhat limited. You might as well double up on your combo pieces.
Disciples of Gix is actually really cute. Disciples of Gix, when it's a 6-mana creature, which expensive, don't get me wrong, but it when it enters the battlefield, it searches your library for up to 3 artifact cards, and you put them into your graveyard and then shuffle. And that allows you to get Phyrexian Devourer and Walking Ballista, which combos.
That also lets you get
Trazen.
So maybe that's why you run Trazen instead.
Reason. Yeah.
because you get that, you can reanimate one of the pieces.
Yeah, that's got to be it. I was going to say, hey, Buried Alive does that too, and Buried Alive does do that too. But once again, in monocolors, you kind of got to fill slots somehow. Might as well double up.
Yeah, and they do run both.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cute.
Okay, that's kind of cute. I guess that's why you don't run Ooze and you run Trazyn.
Okay. Huh. I mean, it's still a funky deck. I'm not saying. I mean, there's a reason why it's our off-meta champion.
I think this takes a cake for off-meta champion.
Yeah, that doesn't get more off-meta than this. This is like when people brought Magda out of the woodwork. It's like nobody's gonna have a clue how to play against this deck when you sit down in front of it.
Magda at least has a combo in the command zone.
Well, yeah, I'm like similar idea. I'm not saying this deck is as good as Magda. I'm sure it isn't. But like, it's the same idea. If somebody sits down across from the CDH table, plops Braids Arisen Nightmare on the table, you have no clue what they're going to do. You have no clue what they're going to do. You're going to have no clue how to interact with it, probably. And you can get some wins that way. People, I mean, I feel like this deck's ceiling is probably Magda, where like it spikes a tournament or two and then people learn how to play against it. But I mean, hey, 2 wins is more than I got playing Thrasios Tymna, so I can't really say too much about it.
You've heard it here first, folks. Thrasios Tymna is worse than Braids.
Don't let Jacoby hear you say that.
I mean, I didn't say it was worse. I said it did better than me.
No, it's definitely worse. It is also running the one ring. It is also wanting the one wing.
The one wing?
Is a very good one wing deck.
One wing is one wing too many.
Wowsies.
Man.
And now I've just got Punch's Pilot from Life of Brian in my head, which will probably stay there for the rest of my night.
I don't know whether to apologize to you or...
A ton of removal too here.
Yeah.
Just a lot of like minus effects. Clear the board. It's interesting.
Another mediocre black sweeper aficionado.
Massacre in here.
Massacre, there you go. I must be Catholic because I'm watching a massacre.
Well, all right then. Either way, congratulations to Ka0s here.
Yes.
But I believe we are coming to the end. Unless there's any other highlights. I mean, once again, One Ring, really powerful card. You should really consider it in your deck unless you're going like super duper turbo.
I think there were around 90 participants in this tournament, and the One Ring was in 35 decks. So about a third of the decks.
I do want to bring up Sisay Weatherlight Captain. Believe it or not, Sisay had more people playing it than Blue Farm. With 8 Sisay players and only 7 of Tymna Kraum. Although Tymna Kraum did have a significantly better win rate on average.
Well, yeah, speaking of 8s and 7s, 8 total players, 7 total wins.
Yeah.
Actually, I lied, 6 total wins.
Oh, yeah, there's one with just a draw. Yeah, a whole lot of players getting 1 win with it and just not able to get anything from there.
Moral of the story, kids, is don't do what Comedian did last month.
Yeah, do what Comedian did this month. Play a dinosaur deck.
Yeah. I was going to say, definitely do not do what he did this month.
Either way, Sisay got huge spike in popularity and unfortunately just not quite able to turn it into anything.
Yes, Sisay was already on the rise. It had already been getting those results, and then Comedian, really brought it into the spotlight, and it's just taken off from there.
Yeah.
And so many different ways you can build it. All those decks are different from one another, so...
Which 20 terrible Planeswalkers and Legendaries are you going to cram into your list?
All of them. All of them.
Yeah. I apologize to all the Sisay fans, which, I mean, Neko, you're one of them, but...
I am.
I've been vocally against it, but I actually built it and been playing it for a couple of weeks, and... I mean, honestly, after what I just said, this is going to sound, like, completely hypocritical, but, like, Ian's list was, like, the first time I looked at a Sisay list and went, oh, this is actually a Sisay list that I really, really like. There's very little, weird legendary planeswalker-y stuff. It's just, one or two fixed lines and then a lot of good 5-color cards. I threw it together, and I mean, I've liked it okay. It's not my favorite, but I mean, I'm probably going to keep it around and play it occasionally. Like it's a neat little deck. It's not the easiest deck in the world to pilot. If these people just picked it up and then took it to a tournament, that might explain some of the one-loss records here. I think the deck's better than 6 wins over 8 pilots, but if people were treating it as like a flavor of the month and just picking it up without sufficient practice, then yeah, this is the kind of thing that'll happen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's probably the case here. I mean, there's some amount of natural variance even with skilled pilots, and when you've got a bunch of people not knowing the deck, and Sisse, not an easy deck to pilot, as you were saying. So I think it's probably the case where a lot of people were like, ooh, this is cool, and this might be their first tournament bringing it, or maybe their second. Either way, when you don't have that reps on it, it can be really hard to pilot well.
It's not easy. I don't think it's super hard either, but it's not easy.
There were some, I think, notable points. I think Captain Bill, who is a very prolific Sisse player, was in this one too.
Well, as I said, there's natural variance that happens.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, either way, Sisse seeing a huge turnout with okay success. I mean, no one got a second win. But the fact that the majority of players got at least one win is something to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically average, right? 4-round tournament, assuming everything's equal, you should win about 1 every 4 rounds. So a deck should win on average about a number of rounds equal to its pilots in a 4-round tournament. I mean, probably not exactly, but something around there. So the deck did not statistically significantly different from average, I would say.
Which, I mean, is at least it at least says that the pilots or the deck are good enough to be on average, because you're gonna always have people below average. But yeah, as we come to our close here, we've been talking about a whole bunch of weird decks, some of which made it to top 16. And I feel like for our Bed Wed Dead segment, we should talk about some of the more fun, I'm going to say, creature types that made it to a top performance. We are Bed Wed Deading dinosaurs, dragons, or frogs.
All right. Well, very little known fact about me. I once upon a time was a Gitrog monster player. I even bought a Bazaar of Baghdad back when that didn't cost you, a brand new car.
I thought you were about to say you once had a thing for frogs, and I'm very glad you didn't.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I did not play the deck for very long, but I was interested. I liked the complexity of it, kind of the mechanics of how it worked, the ability that have a very high skill ceiling. The better you get with that deck, the better you do, much more so than a lot of other decks where you can only get so good at them. That one has a very high skill ceiling. At least I thought it did back when I played it. Is it a deck I would ever take to a tournament, especially in current year? No. But, we had a little fling once, and it was pretty good. We don't have any regrets. So I guess I'm going to bed frogs. Don't take that one out of context. All right, so dragons. In this podcast, I already said that I am a big fan of Niv Mizzet Payroon. I think the deck is very underrated. I think it's very slept on. I think once you get set up, it is very hard to stop, and it runs more interaction than just about anything to make sure that it gets set up. So, and I mean, dragons are just cool, right? They're not the most popular creature type for nothing. Have they really made a big impact on CEDH? Not so much, but I mean, the Dragon is an insanely expensive Magic card because I guess non-CDH players just can't get enough of him. So, I mean, what's not to like about dragons? What's not to like about Niv Payroon? I have almost picked up the decks myself several times. I'm pretty happy to say here, I think I would wed dragons. Which means, comedian, hi. You got a dinosaur over there. It's a pretty cool dinosaur. You do realize this is a big boy tournament, right? What's that? You're casting my culling ritual? What? My carpet of flowers I was relying on is gone? I'm losing this game? Man, fuck you and your stupid dinosaur. Dead.
Dang. Not respecting the clever girl.
Gruul is not clever in any way, shape, or form. I believe you are talking about Demir.
I don't know what's clever about Fastest Oracle, consultation.
It's being clever enough to know that sometimes you can be too clever and it hurts your ability to do what's important, which is win.
I was just talking about velociraptors. I don't know what to tell you.
I know you were.
We know you. We got.
I know you were. I just ripped on it.
Either way, I'm gonna come right out and say it. I'm absolutely marrying a dragon. Are you kidding me? I don't even care about Niv. I love dragons. Dragons are so cool. Like the Dragon, yeah. Is the card overpriced because it's just cool and stompy? Yeah. But, like, it's cool. So... And, I mean, my favorite deck in the format is Corvold, which is also a dragon. So, what can I say? Dragons are dope. No, like, that's all I need to say. Absolutely marrying dragons. And now we've got dinosaurs versus frogs. One of these two things is still alive. And it's certainly not the dinosaurs. I will be betting the frogs. Listen, frogs are a great meme. Very adorable. In a weird way. Like, you look at a frog and you're like, that is both the cutest and the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I love it. I'm absolutely gonna bet the frog, and the thing that is extinct is gonna stay dead here. No offense to dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are pretty cool. But you're competing against dragons, which is just dinosaurs but better. Or frogs, which are just adorable. And listen, frogs actually have amazing memes. Don't fight me. That's all I have to say.
I'm not going to fight you. I'm just going to say I hope nobody in this podcast ever wants to run for political office, because the amount of out-of-context quotes from this episode alone is going to sink anybody's aspirations. Bunch of frog betters.
Yeah, and, you know, I kind of worry because I have one word, and it's warts, and I don't know how you guys are going to recover from that, but my heart goes out to you both.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not attracted to the frogs, right? Like, yeah, maybe you kiss one. Maybe it's a prince, princess, or other form of royalty in there. Maybe you get lucky. I don't like those odds. I'm not going to try to riz a frog, be like, hello, my baby, hello, my darling. I'm going to kill the frogs. But dragons, mother chucking dragons. Variety of flavors, variety of spices. They're awesome. Call me the bard because I'm going to wed that. Like, I just read real talk. If you haven't read The Hobbit recently, listen to the audiobook that's narrated by the voice of Gollum, whose name I just completely blanked on. Andy Serkis. His full narration of that is great, but for Smog, top tier.
I'm rocking a Balrog shirt for this.
There you go. See, keeping it topical with Lord of the Rings. I like it. No, yeah, dragons are great. You have Tiamat, you have Corvold, you have Niv. Just great options you can play for CDH, or at least options, but they're cool.
Yeah, they are.
And dinosaurs. Yeah, they're not as cool as dragons, but they're still pretty awesome, right? Big, stompy boys. Bunch of flavors, some big, some small. Like, I'll bet a dinosaur. Bet.
That's an amazing quote. Oh my goodness. Okay. Real talk though, campies, terrifying. The little ones that just like run around and bite your ankles. Oh man.
Yeah, the little ones get you. They're all about the big. The little ones are, yeah.
Jurassic Park made me so scared of the small ones. But I can I just say that I've never been more glad with the choices that we had for Bedwet Dead. Oh, that was amazing. Thank you all for watching this and getting this far. Like, legit. Absolutely fantastic. And thank you to all of our patrons. We could not do this without you. Oh. Special thank you to Frenchie, Tax Auditor, That Man Do, Suzu, and The Exterminator. Like, all of you guys allow us to bed frogs.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to support us in what we're doing, as well as get access to the Chaos League, where you can play against our top 16, as well as other top players and other patrons, you can join our Patreon at the $5 mark and have a whole lot of fun. Like, I love it.
It's a lot of fun. And if you want your deck to maybe be on this weird thing that we're doing here, check out the next Chaos tournament happening on August 19th. More information in our Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you around.
See ya.